Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 59 of the Terminal, no, 160 of the Terminal City FC podcast, part of the Air 51 Sports Network. Josh Ray joined alongside Nathan Dirk, as per usual. Jam-packed show, jam-packed week in the world of footy. Obviously, starting with the Vancouver Whitecaps, just a few days after the sacking of Vanni Sartini as the head coach. And we talked about it in our emergency live show. If you haven't seen that, it's on the Area 51 Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, which we're also live on right now. So we'll just talk about that more. And of course, Axel Schuster's comment from a couple days ago.
Yeah. We can talk about it's now been a couple of days, maybe a few more sober thoughts about that. That was an interesting press conference. I don't know how else to describe it. Axel Schuster talked for about 55 minutes.
Yep.
And he was, let's be honest, he was all over the place.
This isn't a diss to Axel or anything, but it felt like he was saying a lot, but nothing at the same time.
He was contradicting himself in many cases. He apologized when he first showed up. He had actually just gotten off a plane from Europe, basically drove from the airport straight to the press conference, was actually late by a couple of minutes because, Vancouver airport.
Traffic. Yeah.
This seemed like an important press conference. And I mean, I get that you want to get it done and you have to get back from wherever you are in order to do it. This seemed like it needed a fresh Axel Schuster rather than a rushed Axel Schuster. And I think that we got the rushed Axel Schuster.
Yeah, and
I don't know if he slept on the plane. I know I can't because planes are made for people about 1.5 feet shorter than me. But yeah, there's not a lot we learned about where the club is going from here into the future.
Instead, we have a bit more questions. So the main takeaway is there is no timeline for the next Whitecaps head coach, and the process just started, which makes you go, And Schuster said he wants someone to come in and accept what they have, accept the culture, but not change much at the same time.
Well, I'm sorry, but how do you sign a new coach when you're hamstringing them to that level? We want you to come in with more energy. That's the word that we got. More energy. You don't get really any roster decisions. We like the style that we play. We don't want you to change that. And oh, by the way, you're inheriting the entire back room.
Yeah, but you're also allowed to bring in your own staff if you want.
We know that the Whitecaps, in terms of backroom staff, have one of the smaller staffs in terms of coaches out there. I got to think that some of them might not stay. Some of them might want to go with Vanni, depending on where he ends up. If he ends up in another head coaching job, it will have to wait and see.
Yep.
I don't know. Let me put it this way. I understand why the decision was made, even if I don't necessarily agree with it. I understand it, and it's a completely valid thing that they did. Like it wasn't done on a whim. With all the conditions you're setting in place, there is one guy that's great for this job, and that's the guy you just fired.
Yeah. And I get why it was made. And Schuster said that the whole process of thinking about sacking Vanni Sartini came in mind during the 7-game slump in September. And the playoff exit and tactics and skills had nothing to do with the sacking. They just needed a new energy, a new voice. And it just kind of the timing feels a little strange too, because why didn't this decision come right after the playoffs to give more time for a new head coach, because the season will start back up very, very soon. And
preseason is going to start first week January. I mean, the MLS Super Draft is earlier and earlier and earlier every year. I mean, I remember when the Super Draft took place in the first week of January. It's December 20th this year. So
Yeah. And
I mean, let's be honest. Axel, when he was talking about, he said that they don't need a coach in place for all of these off-season changes, right? They're not going to have one for, you know, the re-entry drafts, waiver drafts. They're not going to have a coach necessarily for the super draft. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you take a look at the players that come in on the super draft. You're more drafting for the second team.
Yeah, that's more of a
rather than the first
management,
team.
a management thing anyway. Coaches I don't know if they really have a say in that.
It depends on the relationship, and it depends on the relationship between, first off, do you have a sporting director? Because some clubs don't. The modern game is heading towards having a sporting director. And the way things are set up at the Whitecaps is there's a very big demarcation in terms of job profile, right?
Right.
Axel, Quinn, they build the team. The coach coaches. Yeah. And the coach gets a yay or nay on, you know, whether or not they want a certain player, but they don't make the roster decisions.
Yeah, like Vanny did get some say in the players they brought in, but obviously not a whole lot, but he did get some say. So it kind of feels like contradictory to what Axel is saying, but there's also a part of me that says he's just bluffing, and there's already names out there he has in mind.
There's guaranteed a list. When he said that they haven't started and all this stuff, I'm sorry, there's a list. And the reason why I say that is I go back to when we were introduced to Quinn Thompson, who was brought in to basically work with recruitment and Axel on that. And he talked about the list that they have for players that is over 800 players long. And it's set up in all the different positions and how they play, the different formations and systems that they can play. You're telling me that they don't have one for coach? I'm sorry.
It's probably like 100
like,
names.
First off, Axel said that he started seriously thinking about this during the 7-game slump towards the end of the season where the Whitecaps picked up 2 points. They have a list not only in the worst of times, you have a list in the best of times.
Yeah.
You have your ear to the ground. You are aware of what's happening in your league. You're aware of what's happening in leagues around the world. You have a list that is organic and constantly fluctuating as time goes by. Recruitment is not just players. Recruitment is the club.
Yeah.
There's a list. And there has been a list from the very beginning. Now, whether or not you can get guys on your list, I don't know.
Especially considering his comments about bringing in someone to accept what they have. He was asked if that handcuffs them a little, and he said, no, not really. But it
has to. It has to handcuff you a little bit, because there are people out there who are available, whether they have no job right now or whether they have a job, but they are, testing the market to see what else is out there. It is going to hamstring you, because anytime you put conditions on there, the conditions are to weed out the people that would not fit on your list.
Yeah, and it
right? You're creating filters.
Yeah, like Vanny's system is so unique. And remember, like he said that they're one of the few teams that play a solid back three.
When he talked about it, he said the only other team in the world was Sarri when he was at Lazio.
Yeah, now he's
not even there anymore, right?
Yeah.
So you wanted to say, I want someone to play with the system we already have. Oh, by the way, nobody else does this.
Does it? You might as well bring back the guy you fired.
What am I saying, right?
Yeah, very, very contradictory. And it is concerning that if it's true that they just started the search, but I'm willing to believe that Axel was just bluffing. Playing the cards close to his chest.
You know what? It felt like a little bit of respect to Vanny.
Yeah, and
right? Like, we're not going to say that we've started this process weeks and weeks while you were still hemming and hawing, right? We're starting it now. We made the decision about you first, right? We had to make that out of respect to you, and then the club moves forward. I mean, let's be honest. Between these two men, there is a lot of mutual love and respect.
Yeah,
This
and
is not an easy decision for either side. Axel talked about how they talked at the end of the season after the LAFC a game and said, "Look, I can't make a decision on what I'm going to do right now. I need to step away. I need to think." I'm doing this out of not only the business side, but out of respect to you. Give it time. And I mean, in hindsight, we look back at Vanny's comments after that last match, and also at the end of year presser.
yeah,
And there was a lot of Vanny's a smart guy, right? Let's be honest. We know he's a smart guy. He's an academic. He questioned himself. Am I the guy
going
to take
forward.
this group of players going forward? And his answer is, yes, I believe I am. But you don't often get a coach outwardly posing that question.
Yeah, and he was saying
I can't
stuff
think of
like,
another time that you ever have gotten that.
he was saying stuff like, "Oh, maybe the team does need a new coach. Maybe I stay, maybe I don't." And it's just looking back on that press conference, saying, "Oh, maybe I'm here when the Whitecaps win MLS Cup. Maybe I'm not." It felt like he was almost in a way. He felt like he was bracing that it was coming.
I think so too. I think for Vanny, the comments were also a little bit of publicly fighting for his job.
Yeah, like a plea.
Yeah, a little bit of saying like, look, I know the writing's on the wall, but I'm not going to go down not without a fight, but without at least not making my case a little bit. And I like to think that within these weeks since the bow out of round one, that he was given an opportunity to present his case. Here's what I want to do next year, right? Here's what I believe we can do. I like to think that he was at least given that opportunity. And again, it gives Axel more to think about in making that decision, right? You don't want to make this easy on your sporting director, your CEO to make this decision. I feel like Vanny did make it a little bit easy, right? If you're planting these seeds of doubt, I don't know.
And it's just, like we said during the emergency live, this is a massive risk or gamble to take. As I wrote that, it's like taking, like you won some money at the casino, but you're betting it all for the multi-million gazillion jackpot or whatever.
You're taking everything you won, you're putting it on 22. Spinning the wheel.
Yeah, that's what the Whitecaps are doing with this coaching change. And
for anyone who's seen Empire Records, I mean, come on,
yeah,
classic '90s movie.
It's
but I mean, now this is where we are, right? So now we're looking for a head coach, right? It hasn't been done for 3.5 years. We also got to remember this is the first time Axel Schuster
is picking his own head coach.
His own coach. Yeah, I know Vanny was hired in his time, but Vanny was already with the club. He was an interim hire while they were looking for guys. And you can't get rid of Vanny Sartini in, 2021, after the run that he did when they bowed out of the Canadian Championship in August, right? He took them from basically in the doldrums of the West and got them into the playoffs. A fantastic run. Obviously, you give the guy the job at that point. That's the end of your search. Surprising, kind of like how the same thing did not happen to Pineda in Atlanta. I thought he had done enough to get rid of him.
I thought he would.
Different case. Atlanta's got gobs and gobs of money, so different thing. So here's the thing now. Same system, same players, same.
Most of it, more of the same.
Internal hire?
I think that's the wrong way to go.
I think it's the wrong way to go too. Everything he said doesn't lend itself, but all the conditions that he's putting into it, I mean, tell me who else fits that bill. That's why it makes me a little bit more worried with Axel's comments, and why I'm wondering, like, you needed to not just step off a plane and get in front of a microphone. You needed a few hours to take a break, take a nap.
Yeah, and have some rest. It's very concerning that some of his comments that more of the same, but a little bit different, but the same. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And he was asked by I can't remember who, but like, does MLS experience play a factor? Because let's not forget, every Whitecaps coach in their MLS era, except Peter Thorstenson, had no top flight experience. And he said, MLS experience is not a requirement, but it seems that he's hinting at experience at other leagues, at other levels.
I'm fine with that. In fact, I'm more than fine with that, especially because of the sporting director head coach relationship that is built within the Whitecaps. We should say since DeSantos left, right? You got to remember, like scouting, recruitment, all that stuff that didn't exist in the DeSantos area. It was basically DeSantos getting on an airplane in the off season and doing it himself, right? And he talked about how difficult that was. So the fact that they have these things in place, they have very set job profiles. You don't need a head coach from MLS because you don't have to worry about all the silly roster construction rules. That's Axel's job. That's Quinn's job.
Yeah, and my guess is that Axel's looking to bring in someone from Europe, and using his German connections. But there's nothing that's been really reported right now about any potential like successor to Vanni Sartini. But of course, there have been
We're
names.
not going to hear anything until mid-December at the earliest. Even then, I will be surprised if we hear anything before the Super Draft.
I would be too. Like, I would be very surprised. Like 2 weeks from now, boom, Whitecaps are their new head coach.
So
that'd be very surprising.
Yeah.
So there have been names been thrown out there.
Obviously, the number one on the list that has been Jim Curtin,
the ex-Philadelphia Union coach who was sacked just a few weeks ago after the Union missed the playoffs for the first time in forever.
Yeah. Again, another harsh sacking.
Yeah.
In my mind, especially with what he has done over the course of a decade at that club.
Also a very similar budget when it comes to
a guy that really, really knows how to manage an MLS roster. But as Axel said, not a skill that's important.
Also, a very tactically flexible kind of coaches from what I've read. Like, he plays four at the back usually, but he is very tactically flexible. And of course, there's Gio Savarese, ex-Portland Timbers head coach, who took them to 2 MLS Cups, lost both of them, unfortunately. He's been a guest analyst with MLS Season Pass over the past year. Kind of plays a pressing style too, as well. And of course, there's, as we mentioned, Gonzalo Pineda, just, recently of Atlanta United.
Yeah. There's also, I want to say, the guy that just left St. Louis.
Nick Cushing, well, more on him. And Cushing. New York fans are pretty happy that he's gone.
There's in New York, but there's the other guy. Name's escaping me right.
St. Louis? Yeah, Bradley Carnell. Yeah,
that's it, Bradley Carnell. I will say right now, scratch Jim Curtin off your list. Scratch him off your list. He has been very public about wanting to stay on the East Coast. He's got family. His family is in Georgia.
And
who needs a head coach?
Atlanta United.
And I'll say right now, in terms of financial resources between the Whitecaps, between Atlanta, you're going to Atlanta.
Yeah. I think he would be more interested in a team that has a higher budget. And let's also not forget, Curtin is also a Philadelphia native. That was basically his hometown team.
Yeah.
So I guess he'd want to stay closer to home.
It's something that he has mentioned publicly. Not only that, but with the number of jobs that are now available, his stock is going to rise. You're going to have to overpay for him.
Yeah. And
the Whitecaps don't like overpaying, right? The Whitecaps are very pragmatic in their hiring processes, especially we've seen that with players. I can't see coaches being any different.
Not at all. And be interesting to see where Curtin ends up, or maybe does he take a year off just to relax, unwind, think about things.
I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility, especially when you've been that long with a club. You kind of need a bit of a reset. I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of clubs out there that have been giving him a phone call, and they have been since November 7th when he was let go. Whitecaps are going to be one of those teams giving him a phone call, at least to do their due diligence.
They should at least give him a phone call.
Yeah.
At least kick tires, but I don't know if it's possible he'd want to come all the way here.
I don't think so.
That would be nice. That would be the best possible replacement, but
Carnell is if you're looking within MLS, Carnell and Savrizi are the two options that I feel are within Vancouver's kind of wheelhouse.
I don't know about Savarizi would be cool, but the connection to Portland too also plays a factor. Unless he's not that type of guy.
He might be that type of guy. I think it's just the fact that he's been away from it for a year, right?
Yeah. I mean,
if you're a head coach and if that's where your heart is, you might want to get back in the game. You might be willing to accept certain conditions to get back into the game and to prove yourself again.
Yeah.
And given the conditions that Axel has on this job, you might be able to find some wiggle room there.
Bogart, I think he reported a couple weeks ago that Savarizi is already getting offers, but overseas. So he's going to be quite in demand as well.
Savarizi is originally from Venezuela, I believe, but he had a playing career in MLS, which is why he's a very known quantity. I will say, you look at the history of Axel Schuster. Not his time with Vancouver, because he hasn't really had this opportunity, but his time back in Germany. I mean, this is a guy that's been an executive in soccer for
many years,
almost 30 years, right? I mean, he's hired a few coaches in his time, and he's got a knack for hiring young coaches, not necessarily from the top flight, but in coaches that rose to become top flight.
Right. And he did mention that when he was at Mainz, he got a lot of questions for hiring Thomas Tuchel because he did not have a lot of experience prior.
Thomas Tuchel was a youth coach.
Yeah, and look where Thomas Tuchel is now.
He had been a youth coach for what, 7, 8 years?
Yep.
And look where he is now. He's managing England.
Yeah, so, and he managed the best clubs in the world.
He has the ability to bring coaches and do it. I mean, Jurgen Klopp.
I mean, Klopp was pretty much a player manager before he started out. And obviously you're not going to get those two names for the Whitecaps or any names of his
that's
caliber.
Just because they were just given jobs. Otherwise, who knows?
I mean, some people have been saying, oh, maybe take a look at Bobby Simeriotis and Tommy Wheeldon Jr. of Forge and Cavalry. I get the idea, but given that this team is looking to contend for MLS Cup next year, they need to think bigger than that.
The one thing they've said is like the next year is a make or break year. The next year is where your roster is set, but there's a lot of questions at the end of next year. There's going to be significant changes next year in this roster. There's going to be significant changes this year, not to the same degree. I think next year will be even more so because you're going to have a lot of players that aren't on option next year, unless you're starting to do some contract negotiations throughout the year. Your DPs are set. You're fine there. I think all of them are set to like 2026
at least,
2027. But this is the year to do it. And I think hiring out of the CPL is not the way. First off, I really like Tommy Wheeldon. I really like him. I love what he's done at Calgary. I think if he came here, he'd be a bit of a lightning rod, which, and I don't see it happening. Bobby's waiting to see what happens in Toronto.
Yeah, because depending on what the situation is with John Herdman,
right?
Yeah.
Again, I think it might be a bridge. It might be a bridge too far, but he's waiting to see because there's real possibilities there.
Yeah, I don't want someone from CPL because, like I said, this is a team that's almost ready to compete. They need someone bigger, like to think bigger and someone that can really make them shoot
Trying
for
to
the
parse
stars.
through Axel's comments with him wanting of him realizing the gravity of what this next season will be. It's the optics of going to the CPL, and nothing against the Canadian Premier League. I love it. I watch it. It is our Div 1 league, but the optics are going to be that you're taking a coach from a lower level, even though you're not. But that's what it's going to look like, and that's not what people want, especially when you're saying we've got to go this year, right? And Axel has got to realize that if he doesn't get this right, the next job on the line is his.
Yeah, and I mean, this risk is so massive that the hire needs to be a home run no matter what. Because if the new coach falters next year, there's going to be a lot of questions about Axel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is Axel and Vanny have worked together for 3.5 years on the first team. So the team, the roster that's been constructed is their team.
Yep.
Like they, at the beginning of this year, we finally said this was like the first true year where it was their team. Like they're not dealing with pieces from previous regimes or whatnot. This was theirs. Well, with Vanny gone, it's now just Axel's team. So you're going to bring in a new coach to coach Axel's team, right? It's not the new coach's team. He hasn't had any say in these guys. He might have a few says in like one or two, depending on whatnot.
Maybe
we'll talk about roster stuff that's come up today with the club option deadline. But this is Axel's team. It's going to be Axel's coach. If anything happens, it's Axel on the line.
And if he does well, job well done to Axel. And if the new coach fails,
and that's just it.
Axel's next on this
could. We're talking about the risk of it. There's the other side of it too. We could be in a year just time talking about the genius of Axel Schuster.
Yep.
Of him saying, "Look, you had a guy, you were doing good. You're a winning Canadian championship. You were kind of you weren't really growing in MLS, but you were doing better than you had been under previous guys. So the fact that you took the risk to kind of blow this up a little bit and reach for higher, if it pays off, we're talking about this guy being a genius."
Yeah, but if it doesn't, worst case scenario, fans are going to be not happy. They're going to be calling for his head. And he has, by the way, Axel's contract runs out in 2026.
Yeah. Like I said before, I'm of two minds of this. I would have used this next year. It would have been the final year of Sartini's contract. I would have used it to say, look, you're on a hot seat, but you haven't done anything in your past to warrant that you don't have the opportunity to show me something.
Yeah.
But you really have to show me something.
That's what I would have done too.
Or you could be like Axel saying, look, you've had the 3.5 years. You did show progression every year. It's been really incremental. We need something more. Now, what that more is, it's a je ne sais quoi intangible thing. That's the thing is like you're trying to define what is more and get away from like the hard metrics of points, goals for, goals against, or whatever, all that stuff. What is it you're wanting to get out of the squad? Because the thing is with Vanny, it was entertaining for the most part. It was entertaining.
At times frustrating.
Hey, I'm a Spurs guy. That's the epitome of my life.
Yeah, but what is more? Like, do you want a style?
I kept saying more energy, and I hate to say it. I don't know what that means.
I don't think anyone knows what that means.
Because if you want more energy, I'm sorry, who is more energy than Vanny Sartini? Energy you could bottle it and sell it in the club store. So what does it mean? Like I feel like there's a translation thing there.
Does that mean tactical wise or something else? That's what I'm trying to wrap my hand around.
again,
but because he said
That
nothing
makes
to do with tactics.
yeah. Anyway, we're going to be talking about this for weeks and weeks
Yeah.
with every rumor that comes through.
But
And
yeah,
when we talk about rumors that coming through, there's did you read Ben Steiner's article about saying that, TFC should be looking at Sartini?
if I were TFC, I would, especially if Herdman gets out. The Italian connection there, and
Yeah.
remember, Vanny said he doesn't want to go back to the U.S. because of Mr. Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk about that. What is next for Vanny Sartini?
Yeah, let's also talk about Vanny. Just our final thank you and goodbye.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt in my mind Vanny will get back on his feet. Maybe he'll take some time off, but I'm sure there will be a job for him somewhere, whether that's in MLS or in Europe.
He is going to land on his feet, and he's going to have options in multiple different ways, not just head coach. Like, yes, there's going to be a head coach job out there if he wants. There's going to be a lot of teams looking at him. He is an interesting guy to bring in. Honestly, you take a look at the people or the players in youth that Philadelphia has. Honestly, he's almost like an interesting guy for Philadelphia if he wants to go to the States. Again, you're going to have to convince him of that. Someone threw out an interesting job. I think it was Brendan Dunlop. I was hearing him talk about it. It's like, what about a sporting director role with the Canadian national?
That'd be interesting.
Whole setup, right?
Yeah,
you do that. You take his whole thing of what he did with the U.S. Soccer Federation for like 6 years, where he was literally coaching coaches. Over half the coaches in MLS
learned through him.
So, Canada Soccer, the thing is, on top of that, he wouldn't have to leave Vancouver.
Yeah, or maybe he could, work closely under Jesse Marsh and his staff.
Yeah.
That would be
not necessarily under Jesse Marsh, but like
with him
aside, right? Not necessarily as a coach, but in terms of coaching other people. I get what you're saying, because Marsh has been going across Canada, holding a lot of coaching clinics as well too, and that's something I think that Vanny would absolutely thrive in. In fact, we know his history; he would. That's one. He could go back to U.S. Soccer. We know his love. Forget what's going on in the States. We know about his love for Chicago.
Yep. He loves the White Sox.
Right? He loves the city. Working back with the U.S. Federation, I don't think would be a surprise.
Yeah. Or if an offer comes in Italy, where that'd be like a Serie B team, I'm sure he'd take it.
Remember, and I was trying to remember when this was. I think it was in his second year, and there was the weird rumors that he was apparently being attached to the job.
I think that was before he was named head coach. I could be wrong, but
no, it was after that first few months. I think it was like in the first year of his official contract or second year of his official contract.
Yeah, it was a weird rumor.
He first of all, he's like, I have no idea what's going on with that, but it was a weird one. But the thing is there will be teams not necessarily at top flight in Europe, second division, whatnot,
second division, third division, even
championship or League One. Or other ones that are going to look and say, this is interesting. You also got to remember that Vanny is a bit of a known quantity in Europe from his work that he was doing with the Italian Federation.
Remember, he has a UEFA A license, and he studied at Coverciano.
Yeah, and the thing is his work with Coverciano is they actually went and said, okay, out of everyone do we have, who can go around to other places and teach about Italian football? And they looked at Vanny and said, okay, you speak Italian, you speak Spanish, you speak English, you speak, nowadays, he's conversational in Japanese and all this stuff. Yep. You go around. And he literally traveled the world teaching about Italian football. He's going to have contacts that way too. So, there are opportunities I think of that we haven't thought of. There was one other one I thought of that I thought would be interesting for him.
Where?
One Soccer.
Or Apple TV.
Or Apple TV. If you can rein him in a little bit just a little bit, so you're not, so you don't have to put like a 15-second delay on your broadcast.
You don't have
He
to
would be one interesting guy to watch as an analyst.
I mean, Savarese, he could probably, if Savarese leaves for a coaching job, Vanny could come in.
Well, if you do some sort of like coach's couch discussion thing on, say, Apple TV, are you telling me that he wouldn't be absolutely phenomenal to watch?
Oh, he would be. You'd have to filter him. Like, you don't want him to
like
go
I said,
off
you'd
on
need a
socialism.
15-second delay. You'd also maybe have to increase, like if you have like a 5-minute segment, you might have to make it a 15-minute segment. But
20.
Yeah, or 20, right? I'd watch it.
I'd watch it.
I would bookmark it and save it and watch it.
Yeah, like him talking about tactics, then he'd go off the rails talking about his hate for Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, Apple might have to say like tone down the anti-capitalist stuff. We're Apple. Yeah. Come on, we're like one of the biggest companies in the world, right? But I don't know. I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility. It's just if someone has the idea to say, hey, this would be an interesting guy to put a camera in front of.
Yeah.
Not only that, but think of how many times we listen to pundits talk about how much they love talking to Vanni Sartini. What if they got to do it on a regular basis?
Yeah, that would be something. But
so that's what I said. Like, don't worry about Vanni being out of work. He's going to have opportunities out there from a big, vast diversity of options.
Yeah,
but I will miss him.
We will miss him very, very, very much. His successor won't have
as
the
a coach, as a part of the Whitecaps, but just as a human being. He was a great person to talk to. He was a person that got to know people,
us media folks, yeah.
And he was a person that he just loved to share. He loved to talk. He loved to teach.
Hey, he made you want to talk more.
Yeah,
I'm not a talkative person, which is ironic since I do a podcast. But Vanny made me want to talk more.
I don't shut up, so you can ask my wife about that. But he was very engaging. He was very animated, and he not only that, but he wanted to listen to you.
Yeah,
right. He wanted to listen to the person he was talking to. He didn't want to just talk for the sake of hearing his own voice. He wanted to actually have some sort of discourse. He wanted to teach. He wanted to be taught.
Yeah, and no matter how dumb a question I would ask, he would answer. I'll admit, I look back at some of the questions I asked, especially last year or the year before. I wonder what I was thinking, but Vanny answered them like in the best way possible. And let's just look back a little, like some of his best memories, his best moments. One that comes to mind is the God comment after the wild card win in Portland.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite personally. The Batman quote is obviously another one, which even though I disagree with what he's thinking there, I love Batman.
I mean, quotes aside, I liked more just the stuff when you run into him in the halls.
Yeah, right? Like the off-record stuff.
The off-record stuff. The stuff
we can't share it. That's
and it's not even the stuff that you're talking about, soccer or football. It's just the stuff you're just shooting the breeze, right?
About life.
Like
Vanny was willing to talk about life.
Yeah. Well, and it's like Axel made the comment of saying like we have talked since the firing, and he's like, one of these days we're going to sit down, we're going to have dinner, and over red wine we're going to talk politics, and we are not going to talk football.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, they will. It's not going to be in a month. It's not going to be in 6 months. But yeah, they're going to do it. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and I'm gonna miss the guy. I'm gonna miss just not just the post match press conference quotes, just the off the record stuff that he was willing to talk about everything. It's a shame though because I always envisioned Vanny leaving after a year or two or so after the Whitecaps winning an MLS Cup. Because could you imagine what his post match presser would have been like after that? it would have been stuff of legends, but unfortunately, that's never going to happen. At least not with Vancouver. But obviously there's the whole thing with Tim Ford that will live in the memory of not just Whitecaps fans but MLS fans. Him taking off his shirt after the Can Champ wins,
changing shirts literally on TV to put on the championship shirt.
Yeah.
That I wanted to talk about another thing. Did you see the montage video that the Whitecaps put out on Vanni Sartini?
Yeah.
Didn't that seem like when the Oscars do the in memoriam thing?
Yeah, that's what it kind of felt like.
Like it kind of felt like that. Like it was like I was waiting to say like you're going to tell me he died all of a sudden. Like, yeah.
I think the content team was just as shocked as the rest of the Whitecaps world. So they were pretty sad too.
Yeah, you'll be missed.
Yeah. Thank you, Vanny. Thank you for coming on the show a few months ago before the season. Goodbye. I'm gonna miss you. We're gonna miss you very much, and best of luck to wherever you go next. And thanks for the memories.
And keep talking to us.
Yeah, and hopefully
we still want to learn from you.
Yeah. So just all the stars have faded away. Try not to worry. You'll see them someday. As Oasis family saying. Yeah, that's how I feel right now about Vanny leaving. So all the best to Vanni Sartini. So just this morning, the player options for the Whitecaps have dropped like right before deadline, and I'm going to bring it up on the screen here so we can discuss. Just share my screen for those watching the live, obviously.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
It's so there it is. All right.
Right.
Yeah.
Here.
So, I wrote earlier that there was quite a few players that were on option. I'm not really surprised.
Not at all.
You got Bomer, you got Takioka back. That's your 1-2 punch.
And Caicedo.
Caicedo is back.
Though it's still possible they could sell him.
It's still very possible just because he's there. Now, these are the options that have been exercised. All other players have had options waived. But of
that doesn't
those
mean
options
they may not come
waived,
back.
The Whitecaps are still in discussions with every player except Levante
Johnson.
So Levante Johnson is the one player that truly is gone.
And Johnson is eligible for the MLS re-entry draft too.
He is, so he'll be up for that. Now they are still in discussions with Joe Benduck, Jason Ngando, Fafa Pico, Ralph Priso, Alessandro,
and Ryan.
The other
Raposo.
player is Raposo, who is a free agent, but they are still in discussions with him. But Raposo has seen like he wants to at least test free agency.
Yep.
Whether that is a play to try and get a better contract with the Whitecaps, that can happen too. It'll be interesting to see. Now, of the players that are still in discussions, Ngando.
That's not a surprise given I think they're very high on this guy. Especially
they are,
it up.
But they're also very high on a player that they just signed from the academy, and that's Badwall.
Yeah, though I believe Badwall is like 3-4 years younger. So
yeah, right. So I wouldn't be surprised if they brought Ngano back. I think he was playing with Las Vegas. He was on loan too.
Yeah,
this past year,
Las Vegas Lights
did a good job.
Yeah, and one thing that intrigues me is Alessandro Schuff.
That they're still in discussions with, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he would be willing to take a lower salary to stay here. You never know, but it just feels like
I look at this and I'm like, please just tell me that you're keeping the phones open.
Yep.
You're still talking to one another, but you are looking hard for a replacement.
Yeah, or I don't know. I'm not sure if I'd be willing to take him back even on a lower salary, but
I
think it's
the thing is that's 900. 900K. That opens up a lot of possibilities in your roster. It opens up a lot of significant space in your roster. I'm happy they're still talking with Fafa. He was on 650.
Oh yeah, he was.
If you can bring him back for like a year, maybe another club option for another year.
Maybe.
If you can get him for 5 or somewhere south of 5, yeah.
He made like 650.
Just because you bring Fafa back doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the other one I was surprised was Ralph Priso.
I'm not really, because I feel like they see something in this guy, and as I said, he improved as the season went on.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is I'm surprised they didn't actually exercise the option.
Oh yeah. I know.
He's not getting paid a lot right now. I think he's a little bit higher than league minimum. If you're going to bring him back, I don't think he takes a pay cut.
No, he needs a raise.
And the thing is he is the one player that had a club option for 2 years.
Yeah.
So
also,
that was the one thing I was a little bit surprised with. And again, it makes me wonder about Javine Badwal. And because I think they look at Badwal having a much higher ceiling than Priso. And I think if between Priso and Ngando's the one more likely to come back.
Yeah. And what did they pay for Priso? Like just a few hundred in GAM or whatever it was.
Very cheap.
Yeah, and I'm no surprised Takaoka's back, because at the year-end press he pretty much hinted that he would be staying.
Takeoka, Bomer, it's not a surprise at all.
Yeah, so nothing really too major to be surprised at. Maybe Shuff, that they're still in discussions, but
that is the one
options
that I'm surprised. But I think it's also, I see that as the club giving themselves a little bit of a cushion in saying, we're still talking, but behind the scenes we're looking.
Yeah, and
right.
The club's just considering.
Yeah, Levante Johnson, I think is going to get picked up, a CPL team, or maybe he tries his hand overseas. I don't know, but a CPL team will definitely be interested in him, and I think he still has an opportunity for a great career.
Yeah, or another MLS team if he gets selected in the re-entry draft.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah,
I don't know if that happens. I think especially with the way U.S. MLS clubs have to look at Canadian players.
Yeah, I think he goes to the CPL. Which team? Yeah, I have no idea.
Too. So the next MLS offseason date that we have to look at isn't for a while. It's not until December 9th when there is a half-day trade window. And that happens just before we get into the college showcase and the expansion draft, which happens.
And the super draft.
Super draft is a little bit later, but the expansion draft, the college showcase, and all that is only 2 days after that half-day trade window. And you got to remember, as soon as that window closes, teams have to have their lists of protected players for the expansion draft. San Diego is going to get that list the day before.
And they're allowed to take like five
players. Yeah. 5 players. Yeah.
And I believe that trade window day is like the day after MLS Cup or something.
Could be. December 9th. I wouldn't be surprised.
Wait, let me check the calendar here. I know December 7th, I think, is the MLS. 2 days after.
2 days after. So busy right off the bat. Let's talk about the playoffs.
Yeah, so the second round has concluded. The Hudson River Derby, despite New York having all that possession, New York City FC rather.
Yeah.
Red Bulls were more clinical and shut out the blue New York team at Citi Field. As a result, Nick Cushing lost his job, and New York City fans are celebrating, as they always do when a coach gets fired for any New York team. But props to the Red Bulls for.
Someone was telling me, and I don't know if this is true, is that Cushing is in line for the Arsenal women's job.
I think that might be true. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah, so.
Orlando, 1 goal, but second half they were so solid defensively, despite Atlanta having all that possession.
Yeah.
And Orlando just took care of business against Atlanta.
And that is the end of Pineda as interim at Atlanta. Again, you got to think he did enough to at least put his name in contention, but it sounds
I think they're looking bigger.
They're probably looking bigger.
And the Whitecaps fans haters derby, Seattle Sounders LAFC. This was fun. Went to extra time. LAFC did score first thanks to Ryan Hollingshead, but Seattle didn't even score the goal that tied it up. Maxime Chanot just passed it into his own net.
That we want to talk about unforced errors.
Yeah, honestly, one of the funniest own goals you'll ever see.
He had time.
And then
Fry. I'm sorry, but what the guy, another ageless wonder.
Man of the match by far.
Yeah.
Save after save after save. Like the guy looked, other than the Hollingshead goal, which I don't think he had much to do with it anyway, because I think that goal was pretty much hard to stop. Out of this world performance, Stephen Fry.
Absolutely.
And Jordan Morris, extra time winner, a guy who's faced a lot of criticism in Seattle, especially early in the season. He's really come on.
He has in the latter half of the season. He found himself a little bit more again.
Yeah, and then so LA Galaxy, I mean, just a blowout over Minnesota United. Though Minnesota did make it close at times, but 5-star, the Fab Five of LA Galaxy just took care of them.
Paintsill, I always felt like he was going to break out. It was a little bit later than I thought, but great game.
I mean, there's a reason why Gabriel Peck won Newcomer of the Year.
Yeah, hat trick.
Yeah, and Royce, Puig, Joveljic. I mean, that 5 is just unfair.
Yeah.
So we get LA Galaxy against the Seattle Sounders and New York Red Bulls
Western match
against Orlando. Yeah. The Western match feels like the MLS of old.
It does, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah, and though the Galaxy aren't as star-studded outside of, I guess, Royce and Puig as they were in years past, it feels like the Galaxy of old as well.
I'm going for the MLS Cup final is going to be LA Galaxy against Red Bull.
Yeah, I'm going the same.
Galaxy winning.
I'm going the same.
Yeah. I think the chips are falling in place.
To me, this is LA Galaxy's MLS Cup to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Galaxy is just surging right now.
Yeah, they look unstoppable. And there's been some few coaching changes outside of Cushing. Mascherano, Messi's old teammate, is the Inter Miami head coach. And he was coaching the Argentina youth setups.
Yeah. Inter Miami is more and more Messi's team. He is going to live by the sword, die by the sword.
I mean, he's also part owner as well. So
sure.
I guess,
again, this is to me wondering, is Mascherano ready to?
That's what I'm wondering.
Take a job of this magnitude. You're not just moving to a top flight club. You're moving to the top flight of that top flight. You're moving to this is one of those teams where you don't get to come in second place.
Yeah, and I'm presuming it's like, oh, it's MLS, you'll do fine. It's not. This is Inter Miami, the best team on paper, arguably in MLS, and the expectation next year is to win MLS Cup.
This is going to be, you have one job to do, and that's to win every tournament that you are in. And if you don't, that is going to be used against you, regardless of what other record you have. So I don't know. Big job, big shoes. See if you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, for your first major coaching gig, this is a lot.
Yeah. Olaf Mellberg has been named the new coach of St. Louis City SC. Former, I want to say Swede international.
Yeah.
Player.
He is Swedish.
Yeah. Interesting hire.
Yep.
Has worked as coach overseas.
Yeah, as a player, he played for Aston Villa, Juventus, Copenhagen, Villarreal. His last job as a coach was in Sweden. I don't know if I can pronounce this. IF Brahma Podkama.
Oh, yeah. Good team. A team that knows how to work with budgets again.
Well, I wouldn't call St. Louis a budget team.
Basically, they're basically like a Swedish youth factory. Like the number of players that have come out of their youth setup is phenomenal.
Yeah, and just also looking at his history here, yeah, he's mostly coached around. He's coached in Denmark too with Fremad Amager. Well, he wasn't there very long, only
Okay.
8 games.
This is going to be an interesting one. A bit of an unknown quantity, I think, for a lot of people.
Though he has won the Super Tan with
The Superettan?
Yeah, Superettan.
That's the second division of Sweden.
With Bromma Podkarna in 2017.
So he got them promoted. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that was his second stint there.
All right. We'll have to wait and see. And we've talked about that meant that Bradley Cardinal is looking for a job. Whitecaps might give him a call.
Yeah, so that's MLS. But there's also big news coming out of the women's camp for Canada. Yeah. I didn't read the whole article because it's under a paywall, but
I was able to. I somehow got through the paywall. I don't know how.
The Globe and Mail is like a 4,000 word article. It displays there's a lot of trouble behind the scenes with the women's national team, and that's not just drones.
Yeah. So 3 different reporters contributed to this. Numerous interviews. We're able to kind of take a look at the program as a whole and a history of toxic culture that has existed with the women's program under Bev Priestman
and Jasmine Mander.
Could have gone previously, but specifically under this latest regime. Talked about the different analysts and different assistant coaches that refused to spy, and how the fear that was built in of that you have to do this, otherwise not only will you not work for the Canadian soccer setup, you have a job in Canada.
Yeah, and 3 former staffers that are unnamed said the assistant coach Jasmine Mander, who was involved with the whole drone scandal, said she berated them and left them in tears after being scolded harshly in private meetings.
Talked about how this is a history with Mander going back to her playing days, even with UBC. She was turfed off the team for an entire year. For different stuff. Eventually was brought back and ended up captaining the side. But there's the history shows that this goes back before being part of the coaching setup with the women's national team. Forced social gatherings, forced heavy drinking, forced what was deemed inappropriate conversations, people uncomfortable having to share certain personal aspects that you don't really do in a work environment.
Some staffers claim that items were thrown at them during these drinking, inappropriate items, and these events were called Match Day -1.
Yeah. Basically, it was you have to show up. Emails showing that people that hadn't showed up were targeted.
Yeah. So, wow. This really goes beyond spying and cheating. Priestman did release a statement on Instagram, talking about the achievements she achieved, but no mention of the scandal or any form of accountability.
Yeah. After the Globe and Mail article came out, Bev Priestman's lawyer issued a response. They denied a lot of the claims within the article. They said that there was a lot of what they called blame switching.
Yep.
Didn't really go into any further explanation about that or who it's being switched from. Also alluded to the fact that Bev Priestman herself was targeted as the fall person of this because she is gay. First off, let's take a look at the article itself. In terms of mainstream media in Canada, the Globe and Mail is
very, very reliable.
Very reliable. On top of it, the in-depth work that happened over months to put this together, the amount of interviews.
And it took multiple people to write this, right?
Source. There are multiple sources for every point in this article. So I think this lawyer is going to have a very big job if she is going to disprove this, because It's one voice against multiple voices and multiple voices that are inside this organization.
And the people that wrote this, they took their time and diligence to present the facts.
Exactly.
So
now, the other thing
is not
is
like they're making it up.
This bait switching or blame switching. Sorry, I should say that. Don't get me wrong. There are other people to blame, but the buck falls with the person that's at the top.
Of course.
So, and I get it. The article talked about it, and I don't want to talk about it right now because not a lot is out there, but the blame switching seems to allude to the fact that they're pointing to who her previous boss was, and that was John Herdman. We know that the relationship between Bev Priestman and Herdman goes back a long time. It predates their Canada. They were together at New Zealand. Priestman, I think the article even talked about her doing different seminars and coaching sessions back when they were still in England. And Herdman was with the Sunderland setup. So, I mean, this goes back decades, that relationship.
Yes.
But the thing is even if you're the person at the top, if this was the culture before you, it's on you to change it. We talked about changing cultures. Vanni Sartini changed a culture.
Jesse Marsh changed the culture for the men's setup.
Exactly, right? It's on you to do it. You double down. I mean, the stuff that we're talking about in this article is above and beyond cheating, or
it's way worse than that.
This is the story. This is a way worse story than the whole drone thing.
Yeah, the drone thing was just the tip of the iceberg.
The drone thing is a symptom of this.
Yeah,
I mean, put it that way. So I look at the 1 year ban. I do wonder if it gets extended further. On top of that, Beth Priestman is going to want a job at some point back in soccer. This is not how you do it. If you want a job back, you shut up. If I am Bev Priestman's lawyer, I am saying do not talk. Do not say anything. Be quiet, radio silent. And in a year, when the ban is over, or if it ever gets extended or whatnot, then you come back and do your recovery tour. But for right now, you shut up and you take it. And hope that at some point you get a foot back in the door. And realize that foot in the door is not going to be in Canada.
And if I'm a future employer for a club, I see this article. It's a red flag. I'm waving it.
Well, I'm looking at this article. I'm also looking at your statement.
Yeah.
Don't toot your own horn when, all this other stuff is coming out.
Yep. And don't want accountability either.
Enough, right?
It feels like it's being ignored in that statement, the whole thing, which isn't a good thing at all.
No. So again, I don't think we are done with this story at all.
I think there's even more to this. That will probably come out in the next year or so.
Yep. I also don't think we have seen the end of bans from Canada Soccer and or FIFA. There's going to be more.
There's going to be more, for sure.
And I'm not just saying the one name that we're not saying. I'm saying that there could be other ones beyond that as well.
Yep.
So, yeah. The other thing is you look at Kevin Blue and you got to think, what job did I just come into? All of this, the stuff that went on with the men's program in terms of having to hire a new coach, the stuff to do with the Olympics, the fallout of all this. It's your first year. And I gotta say, Canada Soccer should thank their lucky stars that they've got someone like Kevin Blue, who has so far acted decisively.
Yeah, and he has a track record of cleaning things up. But this one is unlike any other mess he's cleaned up before. So
yeah,
the guy.
I understand having to wait until the independent review came through and all that stuff, but as soon as it was out, they moved.
But when was Kevin Blue hired? Last spring, and it's not even been a year, and he's dealing with all this.
Yeah, it was sometime in the spring. Yeah, because they had the person that they were going to hire, the whose name escapes me. But then literally on the day she was supposed to take the job, she said no.
Yeah, for personal
So then
reasons.
the process started all over again. Like it was very, very strange. But he is showing that he is more than capable of this job. But this has not been an easy job for him. I can't imagine that this has been like he came in thinking, "Hey, I'm going to help." You know, I get to hire a new head coach for one of the teams. We're getting ready for a World Cup we're hosting. We're bringing in a brand new women's professional league. Like these are all rah great things.
But he has to deal with scandals and stuff.
Oh man, has he been slapped in the face? And I'm not saying that facetiously. I'm just saying that he's had a lot to deal with that I don't think he thought of. But the thing is executives within Canada Soccer knew all this.
Yeah, and
they knew it was coming. So you're bringing in a guy, and you blindsided him a little bit. Just be happy that you got him.
Yeah, and just be happy that he's here to clean up the mess.
Yeah,
which will take for a long time.
It will. It will. This is
like
not
the poor guy
finish overnight, right?
Yeah,
and the thing is a lot of people are going to be watching him to see how he continues to handle this. So far, he's done a good job.
Yeah, there's not much he can do
with something that's been quite difficult.
The review.
So, yeah.
All right, let's move
over.
So Chelsea get a 2-1 win over Leicester City, and Enzo Maresca's return to the King Power Stadium. Could have been more, yeah. Especially after that first half, they pretty much had the ball almost the whole time. But a goal came in the 14th minute from Nicholas Jackson. The guy, he just bullied the defenders, got around them, and then received Enzo Fernandez's pass and tapped it in the net. So he has 7 goals in the Premier League this season, already half of what he had last year. 14. So this guy's making progress. And this guy is looking like one of the best strikers in the Premier League. No bias and all that. But this year he's been more consistent. He's been more threatening. He's learning how to stay on side. So this guy is, like I've said, he's showing the fans why they should believe in him. And then Jackson also got an assist. I don't know if this really counts an assist in the second half, where his shot was saved, but Enzo Fernandez tapped in the rebound. Okay, it's kind of ironic that ever since Enzo Fernandez left his wife and kids, he's looked like the player that we all thought he is.
That's ouch.
Because the guy has had an assist in almost every game for the past couple of weeks, and he scored at least 2 goals. So yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to go too much into his personal life, but
I didn't realize that it happened, but ouch, yeah.
It's good to see that he is becoming the player that they bought, and after a really slow start to the season. It's worth mentioning that João Felix won more ground duels than any other player on the pitch. I don't know. I think the guy should play more because he brings stuff here. He dictated the play. He made things happen. So the guy can play. I'm not the biggest fan of him, as I've said before, but he's a good player, and I think he just complements Maresca's system well. Cole Palmer was quiet on the score sheet, but he made things happen. Good passes, showed his creativity. Second half, he nearly scored himself, but Nani Madueke got in the way and blocked the shot. And you should have seen Cole Palmer's face. He was just like, what the hell? And I guess he and Madueke talked about it after the game. And speaking of Madueke, I don't know. This guy reminds me of Ali Ahmed. In a way, how Ahmed has the ball but just tries to do too much himself. That's what Madueke does.
Gotcha.
Literally. And he just needs to, keep it simple. That's what he got to do. And yes, I have to mention Robert Sanchez because, I don't know. It feels like this guy's playing with a hot potato with the ball. First half, he nearly gave the ball away. No, he put Caicedo in a dangerous position, but thankfully Leicester messed up the shot. And then there was a penalty on Andre Ayew. I don't know. He looks so hesitant trying to stop it, but it was a weak penalty anyway, and could have done better there. But a win's a win. It's all good. Third on the table for Chelsea. And it's worth mentioning that Leicester sacked Steve Cooper right after the game, or a day after. And then Leicester City players on Saturday night were seen at some clubs, I think in Copenhagen or wherever, partying and holding a sign saying, "Enzo, we miss you." So I don't know.
What?
Goes to show how unserious they've become. Well, too bad.
That's just bad.
Yeah, bad look for the players, the club, and everybody. But too bad. Enzo Maresca is Chelsea, and he's doing a pretty good job.
Your coach gets fired. You hold a sign saying you missed the guy that was kind of responsible for it.
That was like the day before Steve Cooper got fired.
Oh, was it? Okay. Marginally better.
Marginally. Yeah, it's made the rounds on social media.
Jeez.
So, Heidenheim is in the Conference League tomorrow, and then Aston Villa at home on Saturday, which is a big game, given top floor implications. So, that's Chelsea. For Tottenham, I think they're the funniest club in the world. Only they could lose to Ipswich and then beat Manchester City.
And not only just beat Manchester City, but give Pep Guardiola his worst home defeat ever. He's lost games by 4-0 before, but never at home. This is his first one that was 4-0 at home, and it was a slaughter.
Full slaughter.
If you get a chance to take a look at this, take a look at James Maddison's first goal in the 13th minute. And don't take a look at the goal. Take a look at the pass from Dejan Kulishevsky. That's what, when we talk about the beautiful game, that's what we're talking about is these sort of moves. Maddison, 20 minutes in the game with a brace. He's getting a brace on his birthday. Not bad. Way to get back into it. Beautiful 1-2 with Son. Passes to Son at the top of the box. Comes in around him. Son feeds him back in after he has moved around. He had all 4 defenders chasing him inside the 18-yard box, which I didn't think I was going to see out of a Manchester City team. Pedro Porro, unselfish play from Solanke to give him the ball, put it in, and then at the very end, in the dying minutes of the game, Timo Werner, who has just come on, blows by Kyle Walker. I get it. Kyle Walker's played the whole game, but we've talked a few times about Manchester City and whether or not they're going to move on from Walker. It does seem likely. Great pass to another guy who just came on, Brendan Johnson. 4-0.
Great run by Werner. I mean, that's what you brought him in for.
Yeah.
Great run.
Fantastic. Yeah. First 4-goal loss at home in Pep's career. First time that he's ever lost 5 games in a row in all competitions.
Yep.
We can talk about what happened in his next game where he had a 3-0 lead and blew that. There was an interesting point when Savino ran into Vicario about 30 minutes into the game. Vicario went down. He looked like it was pain. It didn't really look like much. And Vicario ended up playing the rest of the game. Then went into surgery on Monday. Broken bone in his ankle. He is going to be out. Postecoglou said this isn't weeks. This is months. He's expected to be out beyond the end of the January trade window.
Transfer window, yeah.
Transfer window, thank you. Spurs are looking for a goalkeeper all of a sudden. Right now, they've
got
Fraser
Forster, FIFA
and
legend.
they've got a couple of guys in the academy who have never played a first-team game. So, what do you do? And there's been some interesting speculation. 2 names that keep coming up are 2 free agents, Keylor Navas.
Yeah.
And the other one that has been popping up is Loris Karius, who was also released in the summer from Newcastle. Those are the names. Now, there is one other name that has been talked about a little bit. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. Hugo Lloris.
Yeah, I think he's cool down in LA.
His contract's done.
Oh, right.
His contract is done at the end of this year. Do you bring back the guy who led you for 10 years to get you over the hump for half the season.
And to be the backup once Vicario comes back.
You know what? You have to wonder if this isn't at least somewhat attractive. If this just doesn't give Lloris pause. I don't know. Or do Spurs do something completely off the rails and look for someone else? Because I'll be right now. I'm sorry, but Forrester can't be the guy. Not for this long. Not when you're looking to win a trophy, right?
And you can't just throw an academy kid into the fire.
No. The thing that really bugs me is about 2 years ago, Tottenham had this glut of goalkeepers, of promising goalkeepers coming through their ranks, and they ended up trading them away for like future sell-on clauses and all these things. There was about 4 that they did in like one summer, and I kind of feel like this is what's biting you a little bit. So that's
Robert Sanchez.
You know what?
Or any of the
I think it's data.com do a ranking. Just released it earlier today of goalkeepers in terms of performance metrics and where all goalkeepers rank. Vicario was ranked number 1 so far on their list. Sanchez was tied for 4th.
Yeah.
With Sells out of Nottingham Forest. So it was kind of interesting. Right now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens come the transfer window. Spurs, we know we've got a certain South Korean player that's coming in. Apparently, they've actually talked to him to see if they can get him to come early to at least start training with the club because their season is done.
Oh, just ended. Great. Yeah. They have
calendar.
Different calendar.
They play in the calendar year. So they're hoping that they can actually get him to come early, start training so that he can hit the ground running. Be interesting. I don't know if they're going to release him or not from that. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, goalkeeper. Position you didn't think you were going to have to fill.
I mean, it's the same for Vicario because I thought he was one. I think he's one of the more underrated keepers.
I think he's a great goalkeeper. He is continually called up for the Italian national team. Doesn't play a lot yet, but he is going to. Going to. The other thing, tomorrow, Europa League, Roma at Spurs Stadium. So big game. Big test.
Are still faltering, Roma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of faltering, Man City, as we mentioned, blew a 3-0 lead against Feyenoord in the Champions League and draw 3-3. It's like 5-6 straight winless matches for Pep. Never happened in his career. To rub salt in the wound, the Feyenoord fans were singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" and chanting about Arne Slot, who, of course, is their ex-manager. So could this be the end of the Man City dominance, the end of Pep's dominance? Because it's not looking good right now.
Yeah.
Or you could say that, they'll turn it around. They're Man City. Haaland will find his form. Foden will find his form. But it just feels like they're missing something. And of course, that something is the Ballon d'Or winner, Rodri. Because...
Yeah, that's such a huge miss. They took, and this is, again, one of the reasons why Rodri deserved the Ballon d'Or. You take a look at what Man City does with him versus without, and the record is glaring.
Yeah, and this is why I was advocating for Rodri to win it, because look at City now that he's his ACL.
It's when you take a look at these top awards, and you got to realize it's not just the guys who score goals that make a team. Rodri is that engine, right? Like, he is the guy that puts that glue together. And I'm so happy that a player like that, the players that don't normally get noticed, got noticed because he was more than deserving.
Yeah, and City's midfield looks so lost without him. Like,
what's happened to Foden this year?
He looks like the shell of his former, ever since the Euros.
Yeah.
Like, Foden looks the shell of his former self. Haaland, ever since the stay humble meme to Arteta, barely even scoring. Well, he did score yesterday, but
He could have had a hat trick in the first half hour against Spurs if he realized that the net was only so high.
Yeah, I mean, against Spurs, their build-up looked so poor, and then Tottenham just made them pay.
Tottenham's now I mean, no team has beaten Manchester City more than Tottenham.
Yeah, thing is, like, Kevin De Bruyne is still a great player, but he's getting older.
He is. He. Manchester City don't sign him again. He's gone. Where he goes, I don't know. But he's
He's been
done.
linked to MLS.
It's linked to Saudi Arabia.
You mentioned Kyle Walker, and yeah, the guy's legs are really starting to.
A great right back,
Load up.
but he can't. He just doesn't have that pace anymore. He can't be the guy that he used to be in a much more defensive role where he is not having to bound up and down. Sure, but he can't do it anymore.
And some of the signings, like Jeremy Doku, I mean, I thought it was a good signing. Brings good technical qualities, but he just doesn't have the goal contributions.
Well, not only that, but like Gundogan, bringing him back. Like, I get it. He was your guy back in the day. But their squad, it's the oldest average age in the Premier League. They have whoever's in charge of their recruitment has dug themselves into a hole with this group because they haven't renewed to the level that you need to.
So Savinho, I think he's a younger guy, but he hasn't been the player that they signed. He's 20 years old, but there's still room for growth there.
Yeah.
But they haven't seen much of him yet. So, yeah, we're getting a lot of aging guys past their prime for Man City. And City play Liverpool this weekend.
Yeah.
And
if Liverpool wins, which right now my money's on them, start engraving that trophy.
And I really do feel like if Liverpool wins on the weekend, I really feel like that this is the beginning of the end for the City dominance, the dynasty.
It could be. I don't think City is going to fade away, but I think it's just that other teams have risen.
Yeah. Look at Liverpool, like what they've done under Arne Slot.
Yeah.
I mean, they look unbeatable. Chelsea could be a team that could challenge, not this year, but next year or the year after. Who knows? Aston Villa's on the rise. Tottenham could be in the next few years as well.
Yeah, who knows? If he can play consistently.
Who knows what Amorim could do with Man United, though? Yeah. That's still a pipe dream, but I don't think the City downfall is going to happen quickly. If it does happen, it's going to be a very gradual downfall.
Depending on what happens with court cases, right?
That too.
Yeah.
Speaking of silly stuff, this thing called the Baller League, which right away, I'm sorry, but who named this? A league featuring influencers and former footballers like Luis Figo and John Terry of all people.
Yeah.
And
Ronaldinho.
Yeah, Gary Lineker, the former Match of the Day host / analyst, that was managing one of those teams.
So basically, this ball
going to launch in the U.S.
started a couple of years ago in Germany. It was a 6-a-side format. It was started by a guy named Felix Stark. And he started it along with players like Matt Hummels, Lucas Podolski. They're now expanding this, and they're bringing 2 new leagues, one in the UK and one into the United States.
It's going to begin in March of next year.
Yeah, it's basically, like, to show you how serious this is, the presidents of the two is KSI, a YouTuber, is the president of the UK version, and I Show Speed is the president of the US version. So right away, that tells you the amount of stuff.
This is so
this.
Yeah, I don't know how they got
your generation, shaking my head.
Yeah, I don't know how they got someone like Alan Shearer to get involved in this, and Gary Lineker.
Money and the selling of souls.
And KSI. Then I miss the days where KSI was just a FIFA YouTuber. Now
I didn't even know who he was. I had to look him up.
Now
I show speed. I at least knew who he was because the guy screams the loudest out of anyone. He forces you to know who he is. But
at least KSI back in the day wasn't as annoying, but now he's just really annoying. Especially with that new song he put out, it's just so terrible.
Oh, is he a singer too?
He's a rapper. I mean, yeah, but his old rap stuff used to be pretty good. Now it's I don't even bother listening to it. Your ears will bleed.
I'm old and set in my ways.
Yeah. So, by the way, you just show how unserious this is. This league will have MLS style one-on-one penalties, like the old MLS style,
like the run-ups, right?
Yeah. Hey, 400 pounds per game.
I love how bad this is. I love how bad this is. I will not watch it at all. You would have to pay me gobs and gobs of money to bother to find this, but I love how bad this is. It just makes it does give me a warm space in my heart that stuff like this actually finds a space to exist.
Yeah, this is a league.
It allows me to feel superior.
It just feels weird seeing former footballers with influencers, and this is I think MLS is unserious. This is like the most unserious of unserious leagues.
Yeah.
So,
do you know what I look at this? I look at this to like the proposal that the Olympics has to bring in 3-a-side hockey.
Yeah. This
like
will have
3-a-side hockey doesn't even work in the overtimes. It's like watching pond hockey.
Yeah, and each half will last 15 minutes for this baller league, and each squad will have 12 players.
That's because that's the attention span these people have.
Yeah, and each player will earn a fee of 400 pounds per game.
Yeah.
So a little side hustle money for John Terry.
There you go.
So that's this week's episode concluded on a weird note. But long one. We had a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
And follow me on Twitter at JoshuaRay00. Nathan is at Enduric. Podcast is at Terminal City FC. We're also on Blue Sky.
Take a look at the Blue Sky.
Which will be in the description. And on Instagram, YouTube for some more video content. More article content will come this way. Especially considering what the Whitecaps do in the offseason and whoever their new head coach will be. The women also play friendlies this week. Let's not forget for Canada.
Starting Friday. Yep, absolutely. Yep. And the second game's on Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, that was South Korea and Iceland. So
Iceland game first, I believe.
Yeah. So that'll conclude this week's episode. Peace out.
Take care.